speaking of technology, artificial intelligence really joined the fight against sex trafficking in 2020 in a really big way. Can you tell us a little bit about the story of Gracie?
Oh, I love this story. This is one of my favorite things. This the integration of what's happening, the innovation in technology, and utilizing that to fight the greatest injustice of our time. Oh, that gets me excited. So, yeah, we have some friends in Atlanta. They built a chatbot called Gracie, and they're really globally key leaders in this effort called what we call buyer suppression, where we're intercepting people who are engaged in the act of buying sex at the point of sale. Now, let me explain how that happens, because that sounds like pretty wild. So the majority of sex that's purchased is done online. Usually the way this works, an ad is placed online, and a buyer responds to that ad, almost always through a text message. This is just how this works right now. The majority of how this works across the globe. And so some sort of mechanism right now, technologically, that could interface with that interchange, we're just like, we've got the technology to do this. So it's beautiful to see this emerge. And that's where Gracie comes in. That's the name of this chat bot. And so what happens is our partner actually places a fake ad for sex online, and the prospective buyer, actually engages in a text conversation, which what he thinks is maybe the girl in the ad or possibly her pimp, and it starts this conversation via text. And what's cool with Gracie is, as Gracie was born, 7,000 different interactions were borrowed from law enforcement, imported into her knowledge base. So Gracie started with an insane amount of knowledge of all of the slang that's used in this space, the average cost for different services, so she can engage with these buyers with exactly what they're talking about seamlessly in real time, hundreds at a time. And the conversation goes on between Gracie and this buyer, and the last text message that they receive is something along the lines of, what you're engaged in is an illegal activity. You should know that your information has been recorded. It's been handed over to local law enforcement, and you should be expecting a call shortly. Now, if that's not enough to kind of like stir a buyer up a little bit, their biggest fear is this. Their biggest fear as a buyer is it's not necessarily being caught by law enforcement, because most people just get a slap on the wrist, unfortunately. But what they are afraid of is being found out. They fear greatly that their wife would know, that people at their church would know, their neighbors or their coworkers would know, that somebody, and all of a sudden they realize this isn't law. This is a group of private individuals that know exactly what I'm doing. Wow. And they have my information. And so what Gracie does is at that point, she says, hey, would you like to be involved in changing your behavior? Do you feel stuck in what you're doing? I want to offer you services and point you to some things that you could do to change this being part of your life. 32% of buyers right now accept that help, go through the next stages of the process and start changing their behavior. So in the first quarter, because of what Team Freedom's doing, because of all this effort, we intercepted over 12,000 attempts to purchase sex just in the first 3 months of the year. So I haven't seen the data for the last the last quarter here, but in January through March, so over 12,000, day in, day out. That's what, I guess in this case, night in, night out. That's what we're involved in together, is actually intercepting somebody that's trying to prey on someone else. So that's, and that's a great example right there. That's the kind of thing that why we got involved in the US, because we want to export this globally. This is one of those things where Rosie just asked us. That's great. That's a perfect question, Rosie. Yeah, we're trying to figure out, how do we translate this, not only language-wise, but we have to translate this into the culture, the sex buyer culture of other countries, and the way in which that happens. But that's what we're working on. Really excited about it. And I just want to say a huge thanks to you guys. We can't do it. We can't do it without you. And so thank you for making that possible.